Okay, hi, it's Miss Rose, and we are back today learning about integers, positive and negative numbers, and we'll only be using whole numbers. I've put a number line here because when we're working with negative numbers, a good way to think about it is thinking about like a thermometer. A thermometer, you can reach zero, but you can also go below zero if it's very cold. So imagining that this is our thermometer here, let's say I wanted to graph the point -5. So if I started at 0 and I went down 5 or backwards 5, I would end up at -5. So that's where -5 is. Let's say I wanted to graph +3. So I'd be starting at 0 and I'd be going to the right 3 or up 3 degrees. Now notice these numbers on the positive side, they don't have a sign. If it doesn't have a sign, it's automatically positive. Now today we're going to be taking these numbers though, and we're going to be adding and subtracting them. So let's say I had -5 and I wanted to add 3. So if I started at that -5, which was 5 below the 0, and I added 3, I'm going to the right 3, so I'm getting 3 larger. So I bounce to the right, and you'll notice I end up at -2. And you're saying, well, how did that happen? I added and I'm not getting 7, I'm getting 2. The way this would work without a number line is when you look at your numbers, think of them as two different teams. So I've got team negative and team positive. They're not on the same team. And because they're not on the same team, they don't actually go together. So I'm playing this little match between these two teams here, and I'm trying to see, well, which team is the winner? So team negative had 5 points, and team positive had 3 points. So the winner, we can see, would be team negative. Now, anytime you see these two signs are different, you want to get the difference. That means you need to subtract. So 5 minus 3 gives me 2. Now, because the winning team was the team negative, they won by 2 points, so it's -2. So we're getting -2 right there, not a +2. So let's look at another example of a problem here. Let's say I took that +3 and I replaced it with a -2. So I start at my -5, which is 5 below 0. But then if I'm going -2, I'm not getting larger, I'm actually getting smaller. I'm going backwards. So I go backwards 1, subtract 2. So now I end up at -7. Okay, now this time you'll say, hey, there's a minus sign, but I ended up adding the numbers because here my two signs are the same. These guys are on the same team, so they get to pool their points. They go together. So anytime you see the same sign, you're actually going to add the numbers. So 5 plus 2 is 7. And because these guys are both on team negative, it's going to be a -7. Okay, so we're going to practice a bunch of these together until you can get comfortable with it. So I'm going to jump forward to this screen here. Now you might want to copy these problems down that you see on a sheet of paper, or if you have printing capabilities, the easiest thing would be to do a print screen right now and basically use this screen as your worksheet. So I've got some reminders up top here. So first question we're going to ask ourselves is, does it have the same sign? If it has the same sign, you're going to add the numbers. If the signs are different, you're going to subtract the numbers. And then you are going to keep the sign of the bigger number. Okay, so we're going to work through some of these together, starting with number 1. So we ask ourselves, is the sign the same or different? The sign is the same, so we're going to add. 5 plus 4 is 9. Now, if they both have the same sign, just keep that sign. So they're both negatives. So we have a total of -9. Now going to the next one, the 2 is missing a sign. Anytime we have a number missing a sign, it's automatically positive. We don't normally mark positive numbers with a positive, it's just assumed. But you could put that there if you need to see it. So I see I've got a positive and a negative. Those signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. So 3 minus 2 is 1. Now, which one was the bigger number? 3 is the larger digit. So I'm going to keep its sign of -1. So it gets to be the winner in this situation. So going to the next one, remember to put the positive if you cannot remember that that's a positive. So these signs are different. So I'm going to subtract and I get a 4. And the larger number is the 15. So I'm going to keep the negative sign because -4 is the winner. If I was at 11 and I went down 15 degrees, it would be -4 degrees. Okay, so next one, different signs. Different means subtract. 8 minus 4 is 4. The larger number is the 8, so it's going to be a +4. Next one, signs are the same. So I add, 10 plus 2 is 12, and they are both negative, so the answer is a negative. The next one, 0 minus 6. Now 0 is kind of neutral, so the answer is just going to be -6, because if you were at 0 and you went down 6, it would be -6. Okay, next one, signs are different, so I subtract. 7 minus 1 is 6, and the 7 is the bigger number, so my answer is going to be a positive. Okay, next one, the signs are different. 10 minus 9 is 1. The larger number is the 10, so I keep the positive sign. Next one, signs are different. 9 minus 9 is 0. That is neutral, so it does not need a sign. Okay, next one. Signs are the same, so 3 plus 7 is 10. They're on the same team, so they go together. They're both on team negative, so we're going to give that a negative sign. Okay, the next one, remember that that 5 is a positive because it doesn't have a sign. So I've got a positive and a negative. Those are actually different, so we're going to subtract and get the difference. 12 minus 5 is 7, and that would be a negative because the 12 is larger than the 5. Okay, going on to the next one. Those have the same sign. I'm trying to get this thing to pop off my screen. Stop it. Okay, never mind. Okay, so 4 and 4 make 8, and then they're both negative, so that's a -8, cumulative -8. Okay, the next one, that is a +10 and a -13. The signs are different, so 13 minus 10 is 3. Okay, and that would be a -3. The next one, the signs are different, so 6 minus 2 is 4, and the larger number is the positive, so it's going to be +4. And the last one, the signs are the same, so we're going to add those together and get a total of -12. Okay. So I've moved on to where we have some double signs beside each other with parentheses. This is something you're often going to see when you're adding and subtracting integers. You'll see you might be subtracting a negative or adding a negative. That can be a little bit confusing. I want you to think about something that's negative, like trash. If I add a bunch of trash to the ocean, am I doing something negative or positive? So I am adding the trash. The trash is negative, so I added something negative. So would you say adding trash is negative, or is it positive? Well, I would say it's a negative thing. So these two signs are different. When you see those two signs are different, once again, that's difference, it's going to become a negative. So these two go together to make a negative. Now let's say I took away something negative. Let's say I've got that garbage in the ocean, and that garbage in the ocean is a very negative thing, but then let's say I took it away. So I subtracted something negative. Would you say that's a good or a bad thing? I'd say, hey, that's a good thing. So notice these two signs are the same. So even though they are two subtraction signs, they actually cancel each other out to make a positive. So when you see these same signs beside each other, whether it be a negative and a negative, or whether it be a positive and a positive, when the sign is the same, you're going to add. Now, when you see two different signs beside each other, so one positive and one negative, it's going to be negative. Okay, so same signs, add, different signs, subtract. So the same concept we were doing before. So looking at this first problem here, I'm adding a negative. Those signs are different, so I'm actually going to cancel that out and just make one minus sign. So here 6 minus 2 is 4. Okay, the next one, I'm subtracting something negative. Those two signs are the same, so I'm going to cancel them out and make that into a plus sign. So now we're going back to what we did on the previous page. So I've got a negative and a positive. Those two signs are different. So I subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1, and the larger number is the negative, so it's going to be -1. Okay, so the next one, I've got two negatives. Those cancel out to make a positive. And so here the signs are now different. So 3 minus 1 is 2, and the larger number is the positive. Okay, so going on to this next one. These cancel out, and they make a positive. The two signs are now different. So 7 minus 5 is 2, and the larger number is the negative. Okay, this next one, the signs are different. So I'm going to subtract. 18 minus 7 is 11, and the larger number is the 18. So I'm going to put that negative that was on that 18. Okay, so I'm going to speed up a little bit here and just put the answer, so you might want to pause the video and then check and see how you did. Okay, so that becomes a positive. Signs are different, so that's going to be 2. It's going to be a positive 2. This cancels out and becomes a plus. Those have the same sign, so we're going to actually add those, get 27. That would be positive 27. Okay, this next one, those two signs are different, so that's going to become a minus sign. So now, -7 minus 8, same sign, so I'm going to add them. I get 15, and that's going to be a -15. Okay, here the sign is the same, so I'm going to add them. I get 39, and that's going to be a -39. And then finally, these two signs are the same, so they cancel out and make a plus sign, and 8 plus 10 is 18, or positive 18.